Well, we're on still spiritual treasures, the letters of Swami Turiananda. And we're almost finished with the letters that were translated from the Bengali. We're within a few pages of getting to the letters that he actually wrote in English. We're on page 222, and I believe we're on letter number 132. Dear Gurudas Gupta, Varanasi, 13 July 1920. Dear Gurudas, I have received your letter of July 8. It is a matter of regret that holy company is so rare. Krishna said in the Gita, among thousands of men, one here and there strives for perfection. Most people in this world are drawn to sense enjoyment. Who wants to renounce? People tend to have all enjoyment and People intend to have all enjoyment and no misery. But they do not realize that it is impossible to have happiness without misery. Such is the Maya of the great enchantress, that it does not allow people to have self-awareness. The Gita is the embodiment of all scriptures. Oh, would you all like to mute yourselves? Again, thank you. The Gita is the embodiment of all scriptures. May you attain your goal by studying the Gita. That is my prayer. Practice meditation on the Gita. Whatever you read, reflect on that all the time, even while walking, sitting, eating, and lying down. Then the meaning of the Gita will be revealed in your heart, and that will give you peace. If you practice the Gita, you will get the fruit. This is the gospel truth. Liberation is inevitable for a person who has achieved the state above the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, as mentioned in the 14th chapter of the Gita. The marks of a person who has transcended the gunas and how he rises above them have been clearly stated there. Krishna says, "He who worships me with the yoga of undeviating love rises above the gunas and becomes fit to be one with Brahman." He also mentions the reason. For I am the abode of Brahman, the immortal and the immutable, and of the eternal Dharma, and of absolute bliss. Therefore, if you only practice and experience this 14th chapter of the Gita, you won't need anything else. What Krishna describes as the signs of a man of steady wisdom in the 2nd chapter of the Gita, he narrated a little differently in the 14th chapter. As the signs of a man who has risen above the three gunas, again, in the 12th chapter, Krishna has elaborately described the signs of a true devotee who is endowed with the signs mentioned in the 2nd and 14th chapters. Remember, the Lord mentioned these signs again and again so that people could compare them with their own lives. Your well-wisher, Turiananda. If you don't have your book, he says the 2nd chapter of the Gita, verses 55 to 72, the 14th chapter, verses 22 to 27, and the 12th chapter, verses 13 to 20. Letter number 133, Varanasi, 17 July 1920. Dear Nirmal, Swami Madhavananda, I have received your letter of July 13th. Struggle alone does not lead to peace. One must surrender and submit. Through the grace of the Lord, everything will gradually be resolved. One should continue spiritual practices on a regular basis. It is important to follow a routine. One must try to maintain the spiritual current within constantly. At first, theory and practice are separate, but later they become one. Theory itself turns into practice. Then spiritual life becomes easy and natural. This is what is called Sahajavasta, or the natural state. One no longer has to make an effort to practice spiritual disciplines. His mind always dwells in God. It is really troublesome if one cannot make one's mind spiritual. The mind becomes saintly by constant spiritual practice. Then the mind does not feel the need for external holy company, because it enjoys constant communion with God. Your well-wisher, Turiananda. Varanasi, 27 July 1920. Dear X, I have received your letter of Thursday. It is true that the mind and the Atman are not the same thing. As soon as the mind becomes pure, the Atman manifests there, and the mind ceases to function. The universal mind exists as long as the universe exists. As the universe is not infinite, so the universal mind cannot be infinite. Only the Paramatman, or Supreme Self, is without beginning and without end, and nothing else. If you think deeply, you will understand this. Your well-wisher, Turiananda. Varanasi, 26 August 1920. Dear Gurudas Gupta, I was pleased to receive your letter of August 20th. Progress in spiritual life comes little by little, and that is good and desirable. One should create one's own environment. Everything takes place in the course of time. It is true, without knowledge one cannot be detached, but one can practice non-attachment. It dawns on a person automatically if he practices sincerely for a long time. One should offer the fruits of one's action to God for his satisfaction. Later, when a person is convinced that he is working for God, he develops love for him. This is called bhakti, or devotion. A mother suffers so much for her children. She does so many things to make them happy and comfortable. But she does not feel that she's doing any karma, any action. That is the way a mother gets her joy. And for that reason, it is not karma, but love. When one develops such love for God, that is called bhakti. If one can love God and make him one's own, then one's life becomes blessed, because God is the life of our lives, the soul of our souls. With love and best wishes, Turiananda. Varanasi, 12 April 1921. Dear Dinesh, this is Swami Nikhilananda, who was head of the Eastside Center in New York for many years. I received your long letter a few days ago. Why did you make such a big fuss? When you call on God, then only you and God will know about it. If you make a mistake, he will correct it. God is omniscient. We only need sincerity and earnestness in spiritual life. Remember the Master's story about the pilgrim who went to visit Lord Jagannath in Puri? He did not know the way, but his genuine love for the Lord led him to the temple. You have received initiation from the Holy Mother. Therefore, you have nothing to worry about. You have mentioned the method of your meditation. That sounds wonderful to me. The purpose will be served if you can unite the Guru and the chosen deity. Don't be impatient. One is supposed to practice for a long time. Maintain your equanimity in success and failure. Continue your spiritual practices and watch how long your mind dwells on God. If the mind runs away from God, Make an effort to bring it back to him. Is it a task of 2 or 4 days? You will have to devote your whole life to it. What else can you do? If you consider God your all in all, and attaining him is the goal of your life, then engage yourself fully in that task. Do the best you can. Don't be restless. However, if one has hidden desires for name and fame, one tries to realize God hurriedly and then becomes restless to achieve name and fame. But this does not work. Rather, first fulfill your desires for name and fame, and then try to realize God. Again, I remind you of the words of the Master. A thread cannot pass through the eye of a needle if the tiniest fiber sticks out. Therefore, first all fibers have to be moistened and made one-pointed by rubbing them. Then the thread will pass through the eye of the needle. Giving up all desires, one should call upon God with one-pointed longing. Krishna says in the Gita, in this Karma Yoga, O Zion of Kuru, there is only one resolute and unwavering thought. But the thoughts of the irresolute are many-branched and unending. This will give you the idea of what I mean. Continue your sadhana, spiritual practices. It will surely bear results. The Saint Tulsidas said, whatever way you sow the seed in the soil, pointing either up or down, its sprout will rise upward. Similarly, if you practice your sadhana wholeheartedly, it will produce good results, even though your means may not be perfect. If you have real devotion in your heart, the Lord will see it. He does not count human imperfections. The Lord knows our innermost thoughts. There is a saying, the prayer of an unlettered person may be grammatically wrong, and the prayer of a learned man may be correct. But both prayers will render the same virtue, because God accepts only the inmost feelings. Therefore, don't worry whether your meditation is going in the right direction or not. At first, one should meditate on the Guru. There is no definite method regarding the meditation on the chosen deity. However, you go on practicing your sadhana. God will set everything right for you. There are 2 kinds of sadhana, preparatory and spontaneous. Those who have desires for the results of their actions are drawn to preparatory sadhana. On the other hand, those whose goal in life is to attain devotion to God don't like to be slaves of rules and the injunctions of the scriptures. They strive wholeheartedly to develop love for God. The Master used to say, it does not matter whether the fodder of the cow is good or bad. If it is mixed with oil cake, the cow gobbles it down greedily. Similarly, one may have some flaws in the mode of one's worship, but if it is performed sincerely, God accepts that worship. What more shall I say? This much for today. Your well-wisher, Turiananda. Varanasi, 17 April, 1921. Dear Jivan, I was glad to receive your letter of 1st Vaishak, April 1921. I hope that through the grace of God you are living happily and in good health in the holy bosom of the Himalayas and passing your days in the thoughts of God. Is your mention of various physical ailments and mental disturbances a hint that you desire to go elsewhere? I could not make anything out of it. Will your mind be steady by itself unless you make it so? Whether you go to a secluded part of the Himalayas favorable to spiritual practices or anywhere else, the mind will always be with you. It will be of no use if you do not succeed in controlling the mind and directing it to God. And this you will have to do by exerting yourself. No one can do it for you. Of course, it helps one a good deal to have a favorable place and holy company. Undoubtedly, bringing the mind under control takes hard self-effort. You cannot say that you have had no past good karma, for you have had enough opportunity. One accomplishes much in this very life by dint of special effort and care. Man suffers in various ways because of his own foolishness, but one can minimize these sufferings if one succeeds in purifying the mind. Everyone experiences happiness and misery, and no one can escape from them. They remain as long as the body lasts. But one is no longer overcome by them if one becomes devoted to God. They come and go. The wise person ignores them and keeps himself engaged in sadhana. Their influence ceases when one becomes rooted in spiritual practices. Then the mind is absorbed in the bliss of devotion and enjoys peace. Worship the Lord. The mind will be calm automatically. Without depending on a place or a person, take refuge in the indwelling self. Try to purify the mind with all your heart and soul. Curb your outgoing tendencies and make an effort to be indrawn. In shunning all worldly desires, direct yourself towards God. Then you will no longer go astray due to the vain promptings of your mind, and you will be endowed with peace and goodness by the grace of the Lord. Your well-wisher, Turiananda. I kind of like that, his statement, no longer go astray due to the vain promptings of your mind. I'm not sure I've heard that before, but we all have them. Next letter, Varanasi, 6 May 1921. Dear Dinesh, Swami Nikhilananda, yesterday I received your long letter. This letter repeats the same old story of your previous letter. Nevertheless, you have mentioned that you cannot express in words how much benefit you have derived from my advice. But I do not understand what benefit you have derived. I see the same old complaints and lamentations here without any change. How shall I understand by this that you've been benefited? All work is to be learned through practice. It seems to me that you people do not admit that practice is necessary for spiritual disciplines and control of the mind. You want to be a great yogi or a great devotee by practicing meditation for a couple of days or repeating japam for 4 days. You are prepared to exert yourself and wait for results regarding everything else. But in spiritual matters, you cannot withstand the slightest delay. You become overly impatient. However, human character is formed by practicing disciplines in life after life. But without comprehending this, you people want success within 3 days. What else shall I say? It seems that you did not read my letter attentively. If so, you would not have questioned me again in the same old fashion. Is it so easy to control the mind? How can you do that without exerting yourself? I think I mentioned this in my previous letter. Now I have nothing more to write. With best wishes, Turiananda. And that is the last of the letters translated from the Bengali. The next section of letters are letters that he wrote It looks like quite a few of them were written they're written both in the United States and in India. I think everyone knows he was in Shanti Ashram for at least a year, wasn't he? Yeah, more than that, and then went back to India. So he was up in Northern California living in an ashram that he started with Western devotees for all that time. So the first letter was written in Los Angeles in 1901. My dear Guru Das. Guru Das was a Western devotee who became Swami Atulananda. Don't get discouraged or disheartened. Why should it be always sunshine and good times? Let Mother's will be done. Never mind sunshine or rain. We must not forget Mother at any time. Even if we don't see her, why should we lose heart? She appears again in our view. She knows what is best for us. Once we have given ourselves over to her, what right have we to think of ourselves again? It is not so easy to do as to say, of that I'm sure, but there is no other way out. Whether we see or don't see, Mother is our only place of rest. There are ups and downs in all hearts, but we should not give way to them. Real, genuine sympathy alone works wonders. That is the one thing omnipotent in this world of sorrows and weaknesses. Ask of Mother for that, and you will have it. Think not about yourself, but only for others. That is renunciation. That is religion. That is all. You have died. Why do you think of yourself? Have you not given everything over to Mother? Why then think of yourself again? Never care for position. Give up all such ideas. Work is worship. Everything is in the life we live, not in position. Mother knows the heart and sees the heart and arranges things accordingly. Let your light so shine that everybody can see it. Let your work be silent and in secret, and your Mother who seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. The fowls of the air have their nests to rest, but the Son of Man had nowhere to lay his head. Jesus had no position, and millions of hearts are his place, or he is the place where millions of weary souls go for rest. Go on, my dear boy, live the life. Pray for it earnestly and sincerely. It pleased me immensely to read the account of the celebration in Shanti Ashram of Sri Ramakrishna's birthday anniversary. We observe the day here and talk of him in prayer. May Sri Ramakrishna arouse in us the real spirit of renunciation and love for Mother, whose very personification he himself was. Be strong, my dear boy. Don't give in to anything whatever. It is not good to be weak. The weak must go to the wall. This is the law of the world. And what have you to do with the world anymore? Mother's child, good or bad, weak or strong, you have no other to look up to but Mother. Others who do not know may think of temporal help, but you can never think that way, I'm sure. Sri Ramakrishna is the concrete embodiment of the Vedantic truth, because in his life he manifested in full all the subtle truths that we read about in the Vedanta philosophy. Pray for unflinching love and devotion, and you will have everything. There is no world outside. It is what we project outside. But how difficult it is to understand this, and how much more difficult to remember it always, even after understanding it. We feel unhappy when we make ourselves small. We feel miserable when we think of ourselves as finite. That is the bane. Yet we forget and are in the whirlpool of Maya ever once again. But thanks to the grace of Mother, we remember it again soon. There is no happiness in that which is finite. That which is finite is perishable. That which is universal is blissful itself. That's from the Chandogya Upanishad. Know the universal. That is the real self. May we never lose sight of our real self, which is the self of all. Our dear Mother, whose children we are, Turiananda. And I think we'll stop there this evening. We'll continue with the letters in English. There aren't that many. Are there any questions or discussion?
It's interesting, Krishna Prana, that Guru Das quoted Turiananda and really practiced these things that Turiananda, I mean, he often in his own letters
Yes, well, this...
basically said the same thing.
They probably do say the same thing, but
Yeah.
it is, these are Turiananda's letters to Guru Das.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay.
And Guru Das said it to other people, the same thing.
Well, don't we all say what our guru told us?
Well, that wasn't his guru, actually.
No, but
Holy
I mean,
Mother-
it was the one he had a lot of association with. And I know that we all quote the Swamis that we've lived with and been close to.
Krishna,
Yes?
do you happen to have any idea, since Ramakrishna studied Christianity and Islam, do you know if he was a student at all of the Tao?
Of what?
Of the Tao, the Chinese Tao. It's very similar
I don't
to
believe, I don't know. I don't believe I ever heard that he practiced Chinese religious philosophy. And when we say he was a student of, he did not take the books of their religions. He took the essence of their religions and practiced what they taught.
Interesting, because their religion, their thinking is so parallel, almost the same, just different vocabulary.
Well, yes, of course, because as he said, all religions lead to the same goal. And it's only in the followers who interpret the religions where the confusion comes and the arguments. If all of the prophets of every religion got in the same room, they would have no argument. But as soon as their followers get in the same room, there's all kinds of fights. And it just seems to be that way because we all have our own understanding and we think that's the only way it could be understood. Okay. We have the most beautiful thing, the most beautiful, it's so good I can't even, okay. We have, today was the day that the Jaisri Durga ended. So if anyone can let me know by email or whatever how many you really did, I'm happy to have the final number. Saturday, October 8th at 5 p.m., we'll have the gospel reading of Sri Ramakrishna on Zoom, YouTube, and here. Sunday, October 9th, we have this is kind of out of, as you all know, we're having a celebration of the 75th anniversary of the founding of the convents. Well, this talk I was supposed to give in conjunction with that, but it's going to be a week early. Someone asked, monastic life, what is it? Okay, so the topic on Sunday is monastic life. Parentheses, work is worship. Then on Saturday, October 15th, we'll have the 75th anniversary, the Diamond Jubilee celebration of the founding of the convent. It's from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and it will be on Zoom and YouTube. It starts at 10 o'clock with a brief introduction Swami Sarvadevananda will give us. Then the President Maharaj, Swami Smaranananda Ji, has written a passage for us to read, a notice for us to read, and I believe Saradeshapuranam will be reading his message. Then we'll have a message from Swami Suvirananda, the General Secretary of the Order from Bellarmont, and I'll read that. After those two messages, Vajrapana will give a brief history of the convent, which will be followed by a video slide presentation. Pictures of the early nuns, pictures of some of as they took their vows, went to India. Then we'll have a puja from 12 to 1 here in the temple, lunch from 1 to 2, and from 2 to 4 we'll have reminiscences, some live, some video, some read. People talking about their experiences with the early nuns of the order. And followed by that, we'll have some music. Sunday the 16th, we'll have Swami Harinamananda, Lessons from Harvard. And we'll stop there. That's 2 weeks I've given you in a row. Okay. If there's no more questions or comments, certainly hope to have as many as you can be here via Zoom or in person for the 15th. I think it should be kind of fun. Okay, we'll end with the chant. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.